Hi, in the second part, we shall take up the decision-making process in an organization to implement the control and mitigation strategies for nitrosamine impurities. In the first part, we discussed chemistry of nitrosamine impurity formation, followed by some of the chiefly investigated impurities, their structures, case numbers, and medications in which they have been detected. Root cause of generation and formation of these impurities were discussed thereafter. Chief among them were solvent and reagents, including recovered ones, structural alerts in key raw materials and APIs, role of primary packaging material, etc. And in the end, we observed some of the salient points of processes and supply chain while evaluating nitrosamine risk assessment procedure. Hello, I am Arvind Mittal. Welcome to my channel Pharma Punch. I am a pharma auditor and consultant. Do subscribe my channel to remain updated on pharmaceutical matters thoroughly. In the current lecture, apart from discussing decision-making process, we shall see acceptable intake limits of 9 impurities. One interesting addition made by European Medicine Agency is limit of any other nitrosamine impurity, which has been restricted to not more than 18 nanogram per day. It would indeed be interesting to see how industry is going to react to this limit. Then we shall discuss analytical method requirements and analytical validation parameters for these impurities. And in the last, we shall take up probable role of food supplements, especially vitamin C, to mitigate the purported risk of nitrosamine impurities. After identification of potential sources of nitrosamine impurities, either through contamination or generation, the manufacturer should devise suitable control strategies to minimize or eliminate the risk. This can be understood with the help of this decision tree. At the top of the risk mitigation strategy is risk assessment of the manufacturing process. This is the heart of the risk mitigation strategy. Responsible persons from marketing, quality assurance, quality control, manufacturing unit, recovery plant, purchase, store, tech transfer team, and R&D should sit together for brainstorming sessions. Each respective unit on its part should evaluate its process critically and determine reasons for nitrosamine impurities contamination or generation. The minutes of meeting and deliberations thereof should be documented for regulatory purposes. The risk assessment is nothing but the fine-tuning of quality management system with respect to process, supply chain, and stability studies with special reference to nitrosamine impurities. If the risk assessment determines that there is no possibility for nitrosamine impurities, then there is no need to take further action. If a risk of nitrosamine impurity is identified, confirmatory testing of batches should be conducted using sensitive and appropriately validated analytical methods. Along with the analytical strategies, changes in process parameters, vendor qualification, and validation should be taken up. These activities initially can be restricted to process development and analytical research section. The risk mitigation exercise should continue till purported risk level is sufficiently below the alert levels. Once the risk evaluation and mitigation exercise is sufficiently acceptable, thereafter change control and process validation at commercial level should be planned. A suitable stability exercise should also be started by taking rich experience from laboratory validation batches. If the source of contamination is found to be from primary packaging material, then the change in container closure system should be introduced. During the life cycle process, if additional risk is identified, then the same path of risk evaluation and mitigation should be adopted. After this, we come to analytical part of nitrosamine impurities. Since the levels of impurities are very low, we need sophisticated instruments like high-resolution liquid mass spectrometer or GCMS. In some instances, GCMS analysis have shown to increase the levels of nitrosamine impurities. The attributed reason is high temperature in gas chromatograph. Therefore, preferable instrument should be high-resolution LC-MSMS. Manufacturer may either opt for triple quad LC-MSMS or quadrupole time of flight or QTOF mass spectrometer with resolution more than 60,000. The acceptable intake limit is the daily exposure of a nitrosamine compound that approximates 1 in 100,000 cancer risk after 70 years of exposure. FDA and European Medicine Agency recommend the following acceptable intake limits for nitrosamine impurities. NDMA 96 nanogram per day, NDEA 26.5, NIPEA 26.5, NDIPA 26.5, NMBA 96, MNP 26.5, NDBA 26.5, NMPA 34.3, and CPNP 96 nanogram per day. As per European Medicine Agency's opinion, in case of lack of Ames test or lack of evaluation of carcinogenic potential of a new impurity, its limit should be restricted to not more than 18 nanogram per day. It is quite interesting to see how industry is going to react to this limit. The acceptable intake limit in a pharmaceutical in ppm varies by product and is calculated based on drug's maximum daily dose or MDD. The target limit of an impurity in ppm is calculated by dividing acceptable intake in nanogram by maximum daily dose in milligram. For analytical chemists, it is necessary to understand how limit in ppm is obtained by dividing acceptable daily intake in nanogram by maximum daily dose in milligram units. Suppose MDD of a drug is 500 milligram per day and acceptable daily intake of NDEA or nitrosodiethylamine is 26.5 nanogram. So, as per the statement, the target limit of NDEA in that particular drug shall be 0.053 ppm. Let us see how we arrive at this figure. Divide acceptable intake limit by maximum daily dose, which are in nanogram and milligram respectively. Convert milligram into nanogram by multiplying it with 10 to the power 6. On first multiplication, milligram shall be converted into microgram. And with further multiplication by 1000, micrograms shall be converted into nanograms. Now both of our units, that is the daily acceptable intake and maximum daily dose, are in same unit, that is the nanogram. Now, in order to calculate percentage of nitrosamine impurity with respect to maximum daily dose, multiply it by 100. Percentage is converted into ppm by multiplying it with 10,000. How percentage is converted into ppm? This I have already explained in my previous video, Residual Solvents Analysis Part 1. And viewers should refer to it. 1,000 in denominator and 110,000 in numerator shall cancel out, and we shall get our required figure. Since the limit of nitrosamine impurity is dose dependent, the target limit is reduced as daily dose increases. This can be understood with help of an example of NDMA, whose daily acceptable limit is 96 nanogram per day. We can see that as the maximum daily dose increases, target limit reduces. Therefore, we need more sophistication in instrumentation and more elaboration in analytical procedures as maximum daily dose increases. This is true only if a single impurity is present. In cases where more than one impurity are present, then the combined limit of all nitrosamine impurity shall be the limit of that impurity whose acceptable daily intake is lowest. For example, if nitrosodimethylamine and nitrosomethylpiperazine are detected in rifampicin, then the total limit of nitrosamine impurity shall be not more than 26.5 nanogram per day, and accordingly target concentration of these two impurities load shall be not more than 0.05 ppm. The following conditions are expected from an optimum analytical method in order to execute a satisfactory analysis. Number 1. The limit of quantitation with acceptable accuracy and precision should be used to define the required analytical sensitivity for impurity testing. It means recovery or accuracy and precision at LOQ should have been demonstrated and validated. If quantitative limit test is performed as a routine control, LOQ should be at or below the limit for the respective nitrosamine impurity based on maximum daily dose. In case a nitrosamine impurity is detected in a drug, then the routine testing of it should be included and reported before batch release. The implication of this statement is that nitrosamine impurity should be a part of specification. For an effective quality control, the LOQ should preferably be below the target limit, or LOQ should at least be the target limit. For example, if the target limit of an impurity is 0.04 ppm, as we have seen earlier, then LOQ cannot be more than 0.04 ppm. If quantitative testing is performed to justify skip testing, the LOQ of analytical procedure should be equal to or less than 30% of limit based on maximum daily dose. If the laboratory desires periodic testing rather than batch-to-batch testing, then in this case, LOQ should be less than 30% of the target limit. Number 4. If quantitative testing is performed to justify omission of specification, the LOQ of the analytical method should be equal to or less than 10% of limit based on maximum daily dose. In case of omission of specification, the LOQ should be less than 10% of the target limit. We can see that these two conditions have been borrowed from ICH Q6A specification, test procedure, and acceptance criteria for new drug substances and new drug product, chemical substances. Higher sensitivity of analytical methods is needed for medications having high daily dose, or in case more than one nitrosamine impurity is identified in a product. Different analytical methods may be used for determination of multiple nitrosamine. If the same analytical method is used for multiple nitrosamine, the selectivity of method should be demonstrated at LOQ for each nitrosamine. The use of analytical method should be verified by the user for the specific drug substance or product based on its maximum daily dose. The objective of verification is to demonstrate the suitability of a test procedure under actual condition of use. The target limit of a nitrosamine impurity associated with maximum daily dose requires application of sensitive analytical procedures. In many cases, the most reliable procedure take advantage of the sensitivity and selectivity of chromatographic separation technique coupled with quantitative mass spectrometry. For example, LC-MS-MS and GC-MS-MS. Appropriate sample preparation is a critical step in trace impurity analysis of nitrosamine in drug substances and drug products. This is particularly important to prevent the loss or generation of nitrosamine as artifact of the analytical procedure itself. This is particularly true for GC analysis, where in situ generation of dimethylamine leads to generation of nitroso-dimethylamine impurity. If the active ingredient contains a dimethyl amino group, total dissolution of drug substance should be avoided when applying GC techniques. For this reason, LC-MS technique is more preferable as compared to GC analysis. The following parameters have been proposed as suitable for their intended use. Number 1 is the system suitability. Generally, one or two impurities are detected at a time. Therefore, system suitability parameters are also different as compared to normal GC or HPLC analysis. Mass spectrometer are run in total ion current mode or TIC mode, and thereafter extracted ion chromatogram of different masses are observed. This method eliminates the requirement of chromatographic separation among different impurities. However, in case of nitrosamine impurities, it is expected that system suitability is required only when limit of quantitation is the target limit of nitrosamine impurity. For example, in case of metformin, the maximum daily dose is 2000 milligram per day and limit of NDMA is 96 nanogram. Therefore, target limit of NDMA shall be about 0.05 ppm, which is quite low even for a good spectrometer. In this case, target concentration and limit of quantitation is generally same, that is 0.05 ppm. In such cases, it is mandatory to include system suitability test in the analytical methodology, and user is required to demonstrate that system suitability parameters is valid throughout the analysis. That is to say that system suitability becomes system precision, including bracketing experiments. Then specificity. The main criteria of specificity is that in extracted ion chromatogram, there should not be any peak at the retention time of the impurity in blank run. Therefore, in order to meet this requirement, one should extract the TIC chromatogram first. LOD or detectability. Instead of signal to noise ratio 3 as suggested in ICH Q2R2, here the expected signal to noise ratio is not less than 10. LOQ. We have already elaborated upon this parameter. Then linearity. Linearity range should be from LOQ to 150% of the target limit. If LOQ is limit of impurity, then second point of 125% should be inserted in between LOQ and 150%. And in this case, user will get a 3-point linearity curve. A triplicate analysis of each level is acceptable to regulatory agencies. System precision. Relative standard deviation or coefficient of variability of 6 replicate injections should not be more than 25%. Method precision. Here again, the parameters are same. Relative standard deviation or coefficient of variability of 6 replicate injections should not be more than 25%. Intermediate precision. The combined RSD of system and method precision should not be more than 30%. As viewers are aware that intermediate precision is performed by two analysts on different instruments, preferably on different makes, on different days. It is a good practice to plan intermediate precision in quality control unit of an organization, as this exercise eliminates the need of analytical method transfer to commercial side by analytical research department, resulting in saving of resources. Range or recovery. Preferably, it should be 70 to 130%. However, if LOQ is limit of detection, then the recovery range should be LOQ to 150% of the target level. In such cases, recovery is generally evaluated at 2 points only. And in the last is the solution stability. The solution should be stable throughout the verification or validation exercise. It is a good practice to introduce bracketing solution in the beginning, middle, and in the last of the validation exercise to prove that solution is stable during the entire run of the procedure. After that, timelines for identification, evaluation, and mitigation of nitrosamine impurities in pharmaceutical. In order to ensure the safety of drug supply, the manufacturers should conclude a risk assessment of approved or marketed products by 1st of March 2021 in case of US supply and not later than 31st March in case of European supply. For biological products, this timeline is 1st July 2021 for European market. Thereafter, confirmatory testing should start as soon as possible as the risk of nitrosamine impurities is identified. This step includes identifying the root cause factors for nitrosamine impurities generation, devising a suitable validated analytical methodology, implementing change control to mitigate the risk, including but not limited to change in manufacturing process, change in supplier, change in container closure system, and initiating commercial batches by new route and starting stability studies. The overall effort of manufacturers should be to minimize levels of these impurities as low as possible and to demonstrate that proposed changes are capable to control these risks to acceptable levels. Drug supply, confirmatory testing, and revised dossier should be submitted to regulatory authority by September 2022. For biological product, the submission date is 1st July 2023. For pending application, the manufacturers are required to submit risk assessment and confirmatory testing as amendment before their dossiers are examined. In the last, let us discuss role of food supplements, thiols, and phenolic compounds in inhibition of nitrosamine formation. Vitamin A, E, C, methionine, phenol, and thiol compounds are known to inhibit formation of nitrosamine in vitro and in vivo experiments. Therefore, suitable formulation and food supplemental strategies can be adopted along with prescription medication to mitigate the risk of nitrosamine in patients. Among many inhibitors, most attention has been focused on ascorbic acid, which has shown its efficacy in humans both clinically and epidemiologically. Ascorbic acid has been found to be an effective blocking agent for formation of nitrosamine substances, both in vitro and in vivo. The mechanism by which ascorbic acid works is chemical in nature and results in formation of nitric oxide NO and dehydroascorbic acid. In a study, the alkaline comet assay showed that NDMA, NDEA, and nitrosomorpholine decreased the cell viability and caused genotoxicity. However, ascorbic acid was not only able to increase cell viability but also being able to protect hepatic G2 cell in liver. Vitamin C supplement along with regular medication may play an important role in risk mitigation strategy for nitrosamine impurities if it is included in various drug regimena. However, it requires long-term in vitro and in vivo research studies. This will not only address immediately the drug shortage and recall issues, but also opens up new ideas and avenues for research for relaxed limits of nitrosamine impurities in pharmaceuticals. Relaxed limit means less investment in resources and affordable medicines to a larger section of society. Therefore, my appeal to industry is start working concurrently on these aspects too. If you have some query or question, don't hesitate to ask. Write to me in comments line and keep watching.